Well, good morning, everyone. One of my least favorite memories from college was an 8 a.m. lecture by a professor. And so I'm going to keep my remarks really short, and we'll move into the really interesting part of the program. But I want to say that 7 years ago, when John Thomas and Dana Lewis, and also I'd like to mention Alan Miner, the chairman of Sunbridge, came by to talk to me in my office about this idea, it hit immediately, because innovation is really as much at the essence of the U.S.-Japan business relationship as is trade figures or foreign direct investment or any other aspect. Over the years, the kind of investments in joint development, the kind of work on new products together has really blossomed between Japan and the U.S. We were also very frustrated that nobody knew about the innovation that was happening in Japan. All the U.S. press at the time was kind of, how Japan is old-fashioned and can't get out of its economic doldrums. And we're really missing the emergence of a very exciting entrepreneurial sector in Japan. Now, that has been a difficult process. Anytime some major new transformation happens, it's not going to happen easily. And so we are seeing, though, in the last few years, not only the growth of more interesting startup companies, we're seeing the growth of venture capital in Japan, we're seeing the growth of mentoring in Japan in ways that did not happen 15 or 20 years ago. So it's very, we were at the right place at the right time. And we started doing this awards program, and the symposium is really the one day a year when we feature what we've been doing all year. The process starts at the beginning of the autumn when we all reach out for information about what kind of new things are coming out of Japan, and also looking at Silicon Valley, what kind of new companies are coming up in Silicon Valley. We have a nomination process for now 2 awards, or actually 2 features in the awards program. The first is the Emerging Leader Award. And the Emerging Leader Award is given to a company that's far enough along that you can see that they are beginning to transform an industry or create a new industry. The very first emerging leader companies back in 2011, the US company was Tesla Motors. And the Japan company was Sanbio, which later had one of the biggest IPOs of a company in Japan. So we looked at the Emerging Leader Awards. A couple of years ago, we started this new feature with the Innovation Showcase, which is not really ranking companies 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as the best, but these are exciting new business ideas and technologies that are coming out of Japan that we think Silicon Valley will be really interested in. So the Innovation Showcase companies are typically earlier stage, but they are really interesting, and we have a group of 41 distinguished advisors from academics, from the business community, both in Silicon Valley and in Japan, and also the nonprofit sector. And a number of the people in the Innovation Advisory Committee are with us this morning. Could I ask you to stand up real briefly if you're on the IEC? Bob, Dana, thank you. Steve? Great. So these innovation advisors are putting companies right now through a severe vetting process, and we are discussing them online, and we will eventually rate 5 companies that we really want to bring to Silicon Valley this summer and feature to a Silicon Valley audience. So I'm delighted that this morning we have a representative from our emerging leader category, Mr. Mitsuru Izumo, who is the CEO of Euglena, and we also have a representative from the showcase category, Mr. Toshihiko Honkura, who is the CEO of Quantum Biosystems. And I do have to say that Izumo-san and I kind of go way back. In 1999, Izumo-san was the Japan representative in a brand new group that started out of Stanford called the Asia Pacific Student Entrepreneurship Society. So he was the Japan representative in the very first ACES summit, and watching how he made Euglena happen and go public since that time has been a real joy for me to watch. Honkura-san, of course, is a much newer contact for me, but we were excited to see the kind of activities that he's got going in Silicon Valley as well as here in Japan. So I think that the best thing for me to do is to get out of the way, let each of our panelists give 5 or 10 minutes of comments, and then we'll engage in a panel discussion. Izumo-san, I think you're up first.
Yes.
And here's the clicker.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for the giving great opportunity to share what I'm doing now, today. I'm Mitsuru Izumo. I'm running a bioventure company called Euglena Corporation Limited. And today, in the morning, before my presentation, I have to ask you one question. We should ask ourselves is, why don't we eat seaweed or algae in our everyday life? Why don't we eat more algae? Scientists in Japan and in the United States as well claim that seaweed and algae promote a greater longevity of Japanese people compared to Western people. My focus is to cultivate very useful algae. Seaweed and algae can do photosynthesis and produce a broader wide range of nutrients, such as vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and dietary fiber. My company has very unique technology to cultivate algae in factories. The production cost is 1/10 lower than how it's typically produced. So everyone can afford to buy algae products nowadays. And to start, I think you might have a very negative image of eating algae. There are many misconceptions about algae. So let me give you a brief definition of what algae is. Before this presentation, I went outside to the downtown area of San Diego, San Francisco, New York, Boston, and to ask a question. What comes to mind when you hear the word seaweed or algae? Everyone I asked had a very positive image associated with the word seaweed, like ocean, healthy, and important for human beings. On the other hand, some of them had a very negative idea with the word algae. They associated algae with dirty swimming pool and stagnant water. In fact, algae is a very simple plant which grows in or near water without stems or leaves. In fact, algae is a very simple plant, and it's a kind of seaweed. Absolutely, if it lives in the ocean. We work with over 100 types, different types of algae, and some kinds are very useful for human beings. Some kind of Euglena algae can produce 59 types of nutrients, and the other kind of algae, Euglena, can produce a lot of crude oil, wax. It's perfectly fit for using biojet fuel or biodiesel fuel. And we cultivate algae in sanitized environment. Therefore, the algae is then fit for consumption. Now, let me explain a little about my background and what my company does. when at the age of 18, in 1998, I visited Bangladesh. Bangladesh was still regarded as the poorest country in Southeast Asia. And it was a very shocking experience for me. I mean, there were a huge amount of beans and rice. Children in Bangladesh, they could eat a lot of curry rice or beans. But almost all of them couldn't access other type of foods, vegetables, meat, fish, eggs, milk. They couldn't keep this kind of food fresh because due to the lack of electricity. So the biggest problem in developing countries was not starvation problem. The problem was absolutely malnutrition problem. Then I decided to focus on nutrition and came back to Japan and study hard on nutrition and came to know Euglena at the 3rd grade in the University of Tokyo. This is the Euglena. The length is only 0.1 millimeter, so we can't see directly Euglena. We have to use microscope, very tiny microorganism. And Euglena is green colored. It means that Euglena has chlorophyll and can do photosynthesis by capturing carbon dioxide and produce carbohydrates and oxygens. And what makes Euglena unique is that Euglena is a kind of algae, and at the same time, Euglena can move by itself like animal. So Euglena has both animal genes and plant genes. Euglena can produce a wide range of nutrients, 59 types of nutrients Euglena can produce at one time. So when you take Euglena fortified yogurt, cookie, or Euglena green smoothies, you can take 59 types of nutrients at one time. It's very convenient. Here is the list Euglena has, and Euglena can produce at one time almost all kinds of vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and dietary fiber Euglena contain. And we follow a strict process in order to gain the most benefit from algae. First, we carefully collect algae in the ocean and from many rivers and test how many vitamins it contains and how much protein it can produce. Second, we cultivate the selected algae with a patented special liquid, which is a mixture of two things. The first is natural food for the algae, and the second is an inhibitor to protect against bad bacteria. All this is done in both indoor tanks and sanitized outdoor ponds. I mean, this is the most appealing point my company has. In 1980s, a lot of scientists in the United States and in Japan, they were really interested in Euglena because Euglena has the both animal and plant characteristics, and it's perfect for fit human beings' nutrients. But it's extremely difficult to cultivate Euglena, preventing from biological contamination, or because almost all kinds of bacteria, insects, moths, they love to eat Euglena. So they had to set up a special facility like clean room you can see in the semiconductor factory, but the way of cultivation was extremely expensive, higher than extremely higher cost, and takes a lot of money. So we change the way, totally change and focus only on the cultivation liquid can prevent from biological contamination, we invented the new cultivation liquid in 2005, and we set up Euglena Corporation Limited at that time, 2005. And the process third, finally, every cultivation pond is connected by a pipeline which gathers algae from the pond. And the algae is put into the centrifuge machine that spins a container around very quickly so that any solid algae is forced to the outer edge. After the centrifuge process, we gather the mass of algae and dry it. After it's dried, it naturally becomes powder. We then extract nutrients out of that powder. And now, Euglena green smoothies, drink, fortified yogurt, cookie, these products become very popular and familiar with Japanese people nowadays. We have over 170,000 monthly subscribers to drink Euglena green juice every day. And my company's popular product, Euglena Yogurt, is available on the Family Mart. Family Mart is the largest convenience store group. They have 18,000 stores, retail stores all over Japan. And 2 years ago, we made a special agreement with Takeda Pharmaceutical Company, the biggest pharmaceutical company in Japan, and they sell Euglena special supplement, capsule product for Japanese people nowadays. And in Japan now, there are 1,773 venture companies are originated out of Japanese universities. And we, Euglena Corporation Limited, become the first company to be upgraded to the first section on the Tokyo Stock Exchange 2014. We are the first company to become the listed company on the first section of Tokyo Stock Exchange out of 1,773 venture companies. And now in Japan, we have only three unicorn companies. Unicorn, their market value is reached over $1 billion US. In Japan, we have three unicorns. The first one is my company, Euglena Corporation Limited, and the second unicorn is PeptiDream, is originated from the University of Tokyo as well. And the third unicorn is Cyberdyne, a medical robot producer, manufacturers set up by the Professor Sankai in the Tsukuba University. We have only three unicorns today. Still, over 1,700 venture companies are facing very difficulties or tough situations. So we want to know the Silicon Valley. You have the very good knowledge or expertise to make a great environment, stimulating entrepreneurship in young students. So today we'd like to offer the exchange. I mean, in Japan, there are a lot of scientists who have very good expertise operating or manipulating microorganisms such as Euglena, spirulina, and lactobacillus. And you have the expertise or great knowledge about the entrepreneurship in Silicon Valley or California state. This is the first meet. I want this conference become the first step to start communicate with each expertise or knowledge. And finally, I'd like to show you what company does. Two things. The first thing is we set up Euglena Corporation 2005, and 2014 we did IPO and upgraded to the first section of Tokyo Stock Exchange 2014, and now we start to set up a new branch in Bangladesh and start to provide Euglena cookie as a school lunch every day for 7,000 malnourished children in Bangladesh. And every 7,000 children, we make them healthy and free from malnutrition. This is the first thing I start after the IPO. And finally, after upgrade, we won the Prime Minister's Award in January 2015 in the first Japan Venture Awards program. And as I said, we gather a lot of over 100 different types of Euglena, and some kind of Euglena can produce a lot of wax or crude oil in their body. So this fatty Euglena is perfectly fit for using biojet fuel. So we set up a new cultivation plant and refinery plant. The factory is located in Tsurumi, very close to Haneda International Airport. And after 2019, we ship Euglena biojet fuel and biodiesel fuel for ANA, All Nippon Airways, or Isuzu Motor Corporation, 5 barrels every day. The amount of Euglena biojet fuel still very small at that time, but 2020 Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Games will be held at Tokyo. So finally, I strongly recommend that ANA, All Nippon Airways, is the one of the biggest sponsor company to Euglena Corporation. Therefore, you should choose ANA or United Airlines is the same Star Alliance aviation group they belong to. So you can come and see and visit Tokyo and come and see Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Games 2020 by using Euglena biojet fuel, eco-friendly, innovative product. We ship Euglena biojet fuel for ANA and United Airlines. Therefore, see you again 2020 at the venue of Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic by using Euglena biojet fuel, United Airlines. Thank you.
Thank you, Izumo-san. We'll turn the microphone over to Honkura-san from Quantum Biosystems.
Thank you, Richard, for introducing myself. Hi, everybody. So my name is Toshihiko Honkura, and I'm very glad to introduce my venture, which is Quantum Biosystems. And our company is aiming for making innovation through developing innovative DNA sequencer, which can read genetic information with disruptively reduced cost while improving accuracy. But before I jump into introducing my venture, I just inspired by Izumo-san, so probably I can just share why I set up this company. And when I think about my career, when I was a university student, I wanted to deliver big impact spending my life. But there are so many interesting things to me. But among those interesting things, I think innovation through life science can become very disruptive. like when we think about what is life, or what is the difference between you and myself, and then why some people are suffering from serious diseases like cancer, and then why some people are not. And then if we want to answer those questions, we didn't have any tools 50 years ago. So we needed to rely on like philosophy or religion or something like that. But within these 50 years, probably, we now have a tool of life science. And then that can provide the answer to those fundamental questions. And that is so fascinating. And then that attracts me. So I wanted to make innovation and then deliver the impact through life science innovation. So I started my career as human genome scientist. But then I switched my career because I believed that not just doing science may not lead to innovation. We need both science and business, and the combination of those two things can truly deliver the impact. So it didn't take a lot of time to think about making a startup after spending 10 years in consulting firm and investment firm, but focusing on life science. And that was the time, 2013, January was the timing I set up this company. Okay, so I think, most of you have finance background, so probably I will start just introducing, what is the current status. Quantum Biosystems is a private company. We raised $30 million so far, and then aiming for like 4th unicorn, university-based startup in Japan. And probably I should say that, I welcome any investments from you after this wonderful morning session. But our goal is to read human genome with just $100 and spending just 1 hour, which is regarded as impossible, especially 10 years ago. When we think about the human, completion of the human genome project, it took almost $3 billion and then 13 years in order to just read one human genome. But we are the company who can make it possible with just $100. And the impact of that innovation can be regarded as huge. Based on the report from McKinsey & Company, that kind of innovation can lead to $700 billion or $1.6 trillion by 2025. And we want to deliver that innovation. And then the reason why this innovation has such a huge impact is that all the living things has its unique DNA information. But those are not yet used for business because it costs a lot, and then it doesn't make sense to read a lot of genetic information and then use it for not like improving just agriculture or using that information for some other businesses because it's just it doesn't make sense for. But if we can make $100 sequencer that can be used to read a lot of genetic information, it can become big data, and then that data can be used not only for diagnostics or clinical purposes, but that can be used for a lot of purposes, including like crime scene or national security, improving agriculture or food safety, and then so on. So we'd like to make our sequencer that can be used for various purposes. Then how we make this realized? We are using Japanese strength, which is semiconductor. Usually, DNA sequencer uses biochemistry and biology, but we are using semiconductor in order to get genetic information through capturing tiny currents, which can be generated by DNA. So basically, we have 3 core technologies. One is semiconductor-based chip, which is using nanotechnology. The other one is electronics and mechanics. And then the third one is informatics. We need to analyze a lot of electrical signals in order to get accurate DNA genetic information. But we have these 3 core technologies, but how we accelerate our R&D? I think this is unique, but we just started from Japan, but unfortunately, there are no companies who make DNA sequencer in Japan. So from the beginning, we went to Silicon Valley because there are so many talents there. And then that's the only way to have the great organization which can accelerate our R&D. So it's actually a combination of Japan and the US. We have 30 employees. Most of them are PhDs, engineers, and then those people are actually recruited from competitors in Silicon Valley. Half of our organization is located in Japan, and then half is in Silicon Valley. But this is just some of the core members. But as you see, it's full of diversity. So managing this organization is a challenge to me and our company, For example, there is a young programmer from India living in Silicon Valley, and then his way of solving problems and then the way he works is totally different from semiconductor experts in Japan, and then they are like their 50s. So there is generation gap, there is a language barrier, there is the difference in thought process and the style of the problem solving. So how we can manage that diversity? Well, I'm still learning, but from my limited experience, I'd like to say that it's not intuitive, but in order to manage diversity, we need simplicity. That is my learning from my experience. I cannot change my attitude. I cannot change decision-making criteria. Like, okay, so these are Japanese guys, so I have to behave like Japanese CEO. Okay, these guys are from Silicon Valley, so I have to behave like Silicon Valley guy. That makes the situation very, very complicated and worse. I cannot do that. But in order to have just criteria over the time, I have to be very simple. And in that sense, I think combination of Japanese mindset and Silicon Valley could work from simplicity standpoint. So this is my goal. I just want to, this is actually the picture from Red Sun, which is the very old movie. But I think our culture or our organization have two aspects. One is about samurai spirit. The other one is Silicon Valley entrepreneurship spirit. And then I see the strengths of the combination of those two different mindset. I believe one of the beauty of the samurai spirit comes from its simplicity, simple, clear commitment. But sometimes samurai spirit doesn't accept failure. That is sometimes problematic. But in Silicon Valley, everybody respects challenges, and then also everybody accepts failures. So I think combination of samurai spirit and entrepreneurship means, to me, is that simple, clear commitment, but with respect to challenge, taking risk, take a bold move. Even if we know, there is failure, everybody think that, if it has huge return, and then if it can deliver impact, it's worth doing. And then that's what we are doing. So probably we can have discussion about what kind of, concrete challenges we have, how we can connect Japan and the US, and then how we can make that kind of effort successful. That depends on the topics, we will discuss. But this is just my brief introduction of our venture. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I'm going to stand up to do the moderating, mainly so that we can just share one mic between our two speakers. So thank you very much for those really interesting presentations. For my first question to you, I want to ask, what was the best thing and the biggest challenge for starting your company in Japan? What was the best thing about doing the starting up of the company here? Izumo-san, would you go first?
Yes. The biggest challenge was very clear for me. I mean, I set up my company in 2005, and after that I paid a visit to the so many companies. I visit over 500 companies to promote Euglena product or to sell or to do finance. But every 500 companies, they decline our proposal, and the reason why, because we are too innovative. We have no experience or evidence, proven evidence for the marketing area. Too innovative, and we don't have any track record. So 500 companies except Itochu Corporation, or they denied our proposal. But 2008, in May, Itochu Corporation finally, eventually adopt my proposal, and they invest a lot of money for my company. And after that, 2008 May, after the investment of Itochu Corporation, a lot of companies were waiting in front of the gate of my company. Yeah, it's true, real. In fact, Hitachi Corporation, Takeda Pharmaceutical Company, and ANA All Nippon Airways, JX Nippon Oil Corporation is the largest oil refinery company in Japan, and Dentsu, the biggest advertising company in Japan, and Shimizu Construction is that is the largest construction company in Japan. They are all our major shareholder, and the University of Tokyo, the University of Kyoto, Osaka Prefecture University, a lot of universities and national clients, they start to support my venture company. I mean, the biggest obstacle was we are too innovative, therefore we don't have no track record on the marketing area. That is a problem. So
that's a great answer about the challenge. Why didn't you just move away and do it somewhere else?
In Itochu Corporation has the special functional team to search new idea, innovative technology all over Japan, and also all over the world. And before 1980s, there are commercial banking corporation such as Mitsubishi Banking Corporation, Mitsui Sumitomo Banking Corporation, they were the first company to invest and support venture company in Japan. Then Honda Motors or Matsushita Corporation today became Panasonic. They were of course venture company, and strongly supported and sponsored, affiliated by the government and banking corporation at that time. But now, Japanese banking corporation, they don't have any expertise to find or to search, or they have no reach to the universities. That is a problem, I think.
So if I can kind of summarize what you've said, it's really difficult to get traction with the big Japanese companies, whether it's for investment or financing or business partnerships. But when you do, the world really changes. Honkura-san, what would you say?
So setting up startup is full of challenges. So it's quite difficult to pick up one. But if I have to do that, I would say that attracting people and then making great organization, that is a huge challenge. Because people make innovation, and if we don't have talented team, we cannot make it. Even if idea is innovative, or even if seeds technology is innovative, probably we will not be able to make it. In that sense, I faced a lot of challenges in order to attract people in Japan, because there are so many great engineers in Japan, but those people prefer to work for established big Japanese companies. Probably recently, like Toshiba or the Sharp, or because of those kind of events, people's mindset maybe changed, but still they prefer to work for established companies. And then in order to attract people or talents to small startup, I had to say that risk is very tiny. You don't need to worry about it. It's like, we have some, fund, and then this is safe. But that is very strange to me, because working for startup is something like, of course, there is a risk, and then people need to understand that risk. But I had to say that risk is tiny. But if we, move to the Silicon Valley, and then if we start attracting people in Silicon Valley, I totally need to change that statement. I had to say that it's risky, but return is huge. So return risk should be balanced. So I cannot say that risk is tiny and return is huge. But that statement is something wrong. So what I said is that, what I emphasize is that this is innovative. This should be innovative. And then you can become a member of making that innovation. Risk could be huge, but it's worth doing. So the way I attract people is totally different in Japan and US. And in that sense, attracting people in Japan for small early stage startup is so challenging. That's
okay. Thank you. While you've got the microphone, I want to ask a follow-up question to something you said. You were talking about combining the spirit, right? The entrepreneurial spirit of Silicon Valley and the kind of samurai spirit of Japan. Is there a key to doing that inside a company? How do you keep the company from pulling apart?
Well, technically speaking, there is time difference and difference in mindset, and then everything is very different. But the passion to make innovation is same. It's common.
Yeah.
And then our company has strict policy that we should be transparent about everything. If we had something in Japan, and then if we try to avoid like cross-country communication, and then try to make something only in Japan and only in Silicon Valley, it didn't work. So I think the key to managing or combining spirits is transparency. We ask everybody to disclose what you're doing, and then everybody can look at the website and who is doing what, and then what is the result, and then try to solve a problem in a collaborative manner. So having that mindset and having that culture is the key for merging these different people. That's my learning.
Okay. I have one more question I'd like to make sure gets asked, and that is, for the people in this room, the American Chamber of Commerce in Japan, what should people here know about Japanese startup companies or partnering with Japanese startup companies or new business in Japan? What recommendations would you give to the people here for getting more involved in Japanese innovation?
I think comparing to Silicon Valley, we Japanese scientists have the special expertise or knowledge about special some field, like to manipulate microorganism correctly. We call it the technology, the fermentation technology, and Ajinomoto Corporation or Kikkoman had a special technology to transform soybeans to very useful soy sauce. Or Ajinomoto and the Yakult Corporation had a special technique to cultivate some kind of lactobacillus. But we need, for example, for my company, our factory is located in the Okinawa Prefecture, the most southern area in Japan, Ishigaki Island. And the factory area is 10 hectares. And Euglena do photosynthesis, therefore we need a huge amount of sunlight, carbon dioxide, and leveled land. So we have the technology, but we don't have the chance or opportunity to expand our factory in Japan. But in California state, there are a lot of land and sunlight, carbon dioxide as well. I mean, and I'd like to recommend that some venture company have their special technology, but scalability or a potential to expand their business is limited in Japan in terms of the land or human resources, the population or marketing side. Many sides of business fields are limited in Japan. Therefore, invite the company to California State is the perfectly fit for your organization,
Great.
I believe.
Honkura-san?
Well, I think I would say that encouragement for challenge and support, like mentorship, is a huge plus for somebody who are trying to make startup and then try to go Silicon Valley, or not only Silicon Valley, somewhere outside of Japan. And then I think people here probably has multiple experience working in Japan and working in the United States or other countries. So I think everybody knows the difference between Japan and other countries. And then encouragement or support from those people is huge plus. I think entrepreneurs are sometimes very alone, and then got a lot of pressure, needed to solve all the problems. But if entrepreneurs can have such a mentorship or support from somebody who knows multicultural working experience, that could be huge plus. So if entrepreneurs in Japan can get those support from all of you, probably the situation can be changed gradually, and then probably one of those entrepreneurship can become role model. I want to become that role model. I'm trying to make best effort, but that support would make improve the chance of the success, I think.
Thank you so much. I wish we had more time, but I have to turn the microphone over to Frank.
Thank you so much. I have had quite an inspiring morning. Thank you, Izumo-san, for taking us from the ocean, from algae to airplanes. Thank you, Honkura-san, for taking us to Yamato Damashi. It has never died. It is still alive. But I mostly want to thank Richard. When I first met you, there was something about you that I felt familiar. And then I realized that when Prime Minister Abe went to Brazil, I think maybe you are the Super Mario of innovation. And you are taking a tunnel directly from Tokyo to Silicon Valley. So thank you all for a great presentation.